Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're taking a bit of a unique cultural shortcut. We're plunging right into the historical heart of the Korean peninsula. We want to compare two really important regions, Hwanghae and Jeolla, which, now stand on opposite sides of that border.
That's right. Hwanghae mostly in the north, Jeolla down in the south. It's a profound study in contrast when you look at them side by side. We're working from material that really highlights how these two areas, both deeply, deeply tied to the land, to agriculture, were sort of forced onto radically different paths after 1945.
Right.
And for you listening, we want to do is distill this pretty complex cultural history into a clearer takeaway. Think of it like this: duty versus dissent. Or maybe state symbol versus cultural expression.
Oh, that's a perfect way to frame it. Because it's not just about geography, is it? It's, like you said, almost existential. Hwanghae.
No.
It's got this past as an ancient scholarly center, but its present identity is really as this agricultural workhorse, the land of duty, as you put it. And then you flip to Jeolla, down in the southwest of South Korea. That's the cradle of expression, artistry, even resistance.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But the critical thing, the thing to hold on to, is that both are profoundly rooted in that traditional Korean rural life. So we're going to trace how these agricultural roots grew into such distinct cultural reputations. Maybe we should start with the land itself.
Yeah, let's do that. The bedrock first, the farming core. Our sources jump right in, labeling Hwanghae as the historic rice bowl of Korea. We're talking huge production, rice, barley, corn. But hang on, if both regions were these essential rice bowls, how did one end up with this reputation for, practical duty and the other for artistry? That seems odd.
Well, it's really about how the perception of that labor got shaped over time, and then critically how it was co-opted in the north. Historically, the people of Hwanghae were seen as practical, grounded, really intensely hardworking salt-of-the-earth types. After the division, the DPRK basically capitalized on that image. It fit their narrative. So today, its official designation is the breadbasket of the nation. That hardworking identity got turned into a state mandate. Agricultural duty.
Yeah.
You feed the nation.
Right. Duty. Okay.
Yeah.
So contrast that with Jeolla. Jeolla was also super important for rice, but it developed this completely different vibe. A reputation for what? Slowness, warmth, expressiveness, this kind of deep, sometimes quite raw artistry. It's like the farming there didn't just produce food, it somehow produced culture too.
That's a great way to think about it. Jeolla sort of maintained this slower, maybe more soulful rhythm. It became a natural cultural counterweight to the hustle and bustle of Seoul. And this is important, what connects them both, even across that ideological gap? It's the persistence of nongak, farmers' music.
Nongak. Yeah, I love that we can still find that common thread.
Yeah.
The loud drums, the gongs, it's directly tied to the rhythm of planting and harvesting, isn't it? It's like the sound of the earth working.
It is.
But if it's still played in both north and south, has its emotional purpose changed, especially under the state system in the north?
That's a really key insight, yes. While the basic form is often still there, the jangu drum, the gongs in the south, particularly in Jeolla, nongak often keeps this spontaneous, really high-energy element. Pure hung,
joyful exuberance.
Exactly, that lively joy. Now, in the north, while nongak exists, it's often folded into these larger choreographed state performances. So the joy of the harvest has to also reflect loyalty and organized state success. It's framed differently.
Got it. So the shared language is still there, but spoken with different emotional dialects, you could say?
That's a good analogy.
Okay, well, that leads us perfectly into the history then. The history that gave these regions their political and ideological weight. Let's talk Hwanghae first, the scholarly north.
Right. Hwanghae's prestige is ancient. It's deeply tied to centralized power. You have to remember, it was the location of Kaesong. Kaesong was the capital during the Goryeo dynasty, which ran from, the 10th to the 14th century.
A long time.
A very long time. And even after the capital moved to Seoul.
Even then, under the Joseon dynasty, Kaesong stayed incredibly important, a major, prestigious center for Confucian education. It produced scholars, maintained this kind of elite, refined culture.
That historical focus on order, centralized scholarship, it almost feels like it sets the stage perfectly for the modern North Korean state valuing duty above all else.
It does seem to align, doesn't it? But the region was also scarred. Terribly scarred.
The war.
The Korean War, yes. Because it straddles the 38th parallel, Hwanghae was just devastated. And today you see these remnants of attempted reconciliation there, like the Kisong Industrial Region.
Which is mostly inactive now, right?
Largely inactive, yeah. It symbolized this brief, temporary bridge between the two Koreas, an attempt, ultimately unsuccessful, to kind of merge the North's labor duty with the South's capital. Okay, now let's flip the coin. Jeolla. If Hwanghae is about scholarly duty and order, Jeolla seems defined by popular dissent, by demands for equality.
Absolutely. The history of Jeolla is incredibly strong when it comes to popular resistance movements. Most famously, it was the absolute core region for the Donghak Peasant Revolution back in 1894.
And that wasn't just a small revolt, was it?
No, not at all. This was massive. Farmers rising up against deep inequality, demanding really radical social reforms. That spirit, that willingness to challenge established authority is just foundational to Jeolla's identity.
And that history, that challenging spirit, it carried right through into the modern era. This is where the political identity really cements itself for the listener, I think. Jeolla is so deeply associated with South Korea's democracy movements, the Gwangju Uprising in 1980 especially.
That event is absolutely central to Jeolla's modern self-perception, yes. The Gwangju Uprising was this brutal civilian resistance against military rule, and that collective trauma, but also that collective defiance. It means Jeolla today is often seen as this kind of spiritual, intellectual counterweight to the established power centers in Seoul.
Which makes it consistently one of the most politically progressive regions in the South.
Generally speaking, yes, that's its reputation.
Makes perfect sense when you lay it out like that. One region's history gets sort of co-opted by the state to promote duty, while the other uses its history to promote dissent, maybe expressive freedom.
That's a fair way to see it. And the modern portrayals really reflect this divergence beautifully. In North Korean state media, Hwanghae is consistently shown as the model agricultural region, feeding the nation, fulfilling its duty.
While Jeonju, the capital of North Jeolla, is celebrated as a hub for indie culture, film, it hosts the Jeonju International Film Festival.
The contrast is just palpable, isn't it?
It really is.
So, should we move to section 3? Dig into the sounds, the specific auditory differences, the style that embodies these divergent identities.
Yeah, let's do that. What does Hwanghae sound like, beyond that state-mandated stuff?
Well, the core sound often described as refined, meditative. It reflects that Kaesong scholarly heritage we talked about. The region has its own specific version of the famous folk song Erang. It's called the Kaesong Erang.
Okay. And instrumentally.
Our notes really emphasize the use of the daejim. That's the large transverse bamboo flute.
Right, I know the one. It has that breathy sound.
Exactly. It gives the music this soft, almost reverent feeling, like the sound of wind moving over vast rice fields, maybe.
And what about the geogium, the zither?
That contributes too, absolutely. It adds this delicate, plucked elegance. It speaks directly to the refinement of Kaesong's scholarly past, not just, raw farming labor. It feels like music designed for thoughtful listening.
And does the dialect reflect that too, that sort of directness or practicality?
It's often described that way. Apparently, if you're asking, what's that, in the Hwanghae dialect, you might hear something like Ioka.
Ioka.
Yeah, it's described as quite distinct, clear, practical, maybe reflecting that hardworking nature we mentioned.
Okay, now compare that soundscape to Jeolla.
Jeolla, totally different energy. This region is the actual birthplace of pansori.
The epic folk opera, just one singer and a drummer.
That's the classic form, yes. Known for these long, incredibly dramatic stories. Raw, powerful, deeply expressive music. The most famous story, Namwan Chungyanga, originated right there in Jeolla.
And this is where I have to talk about hung. You mentioned it with Nongak.
Yes, hung. It's vital for understanding Jeolla's spirit. It's that deep.
Yeah.
It's almost untranslatable, isn't it? That feeling of joyful, lively energy, a kind of soulful exuberance that just fuels their art.
So how does that hung translate musically beyond pansori?
Well, you hear descriptions like folk funk or soulful pop fusion, sometimes applied to modern interpretations of Jeolla music. The traditional instruments really embody this energy too. The jangu, that hourglass drum, it acts like the constant driving heartbeat for their nongak and pansori.
And the piri, the small flute.
The piri provides this incredibly plaintive, almost human voice sound. Very breathy, capable of huge emotion. It can really cry out.
Wow. And the speech, the dialect, is it just as expressive?
Very much so. The Jeolla dialect is famous for being melodic, kind of slow, full of inflection. So instead of that clipped practical ioka for, what's that? In Giola, you might hear someone ask, Juranga.
Jurong?
Yeah, it's sort of a slower, more drawn out, really, or is that so? That melodic delivery, that deliberation, it reflects that reputed warmth.
Although wasn't that dialect historically looked down upon?
It was, yes, by the elites in Seoul who favored the standardized, maybe more clipped speech. Giola's expressiveness was seen as less sophisticated by some.
Interesting how the music and speech just directly echo that cultural reputation.
Exactly. Okay, so from sound, let's move to taste. The final big contrast in Section 4, refinement versus the feast.
All right. What's on the table in Kaesong? Given its history as a capital city, is the food really noticeably more elegant than just farm food?
Oh, absolutely. Kaesong cuisine is famously refined. It had to cater to that scholar official class, remember. So the signature dishes are often quite elegant, sometimes high-end. They reflect that aristocratic tradition.
Like what specifically?
We're talking bossum kimchi. Now, this isn't the usual shredded stuff. It's whole cabbage leaves wrapped around a filling, and the filling is often luxurious seafood, chestnuts, jujubes. Very elaborate.
Wow.
Then you have pyeonsu, these delicate, square-shaped summer dumplings. Again, quite refined.
And ginseng, of course.
In world-renowned Kaesong ginseng, yes. A really valuable medicinal crop. The food definitely suggests refinement status.
That makes total sense. The food reflects the culture of the elite, the order, maybe even the duty associated with the state now. Okay, now Jeolla, the food capital. If Kaesong is refinement, Jeolla is
Pure abundance, generosity, feasting. Jeolla's food scene reflects the incredible fertility of those southwestern plains and the long coastline. It's about variety and sheer quantity.
right. Jeonju bibimbap is the icon everyone knows, the mixed rice dish.
It is. But think about what bibimbap is. Essentially, it's a dish of mixed elements, often using leftovers, right? But it's celebrated for its harmony and versatility. It's humble food elevated into an art form, which kind of suits the region's more democratic, popular spirit, doesn't it?
Oh, I love that connection. A food of mixed elements representing the voice of the people. That's brilliant.
And you can't forget the sheer generosity you mentioned. Jeolla is famous for the overwhelming number of banchan, those side dishes that cover the table.
Oh yeah, you get like 20 of them sometimes.
Easily. And their seafood stews are legendary. Their kimchi, Jeolla-style kimchi, is usually noted as being spicier, more heavily seasoned. It's bolder, just like their politics, maybe, and their art.
Makes sense, it's all connected. And this feast is often washed down with makioli.
Often paired with the traditional makioli, yes, that cloudy rice wine. It underlines that deep, earth-rooted celebratory tradition.
Okay, before we wrap this all up, let's just touch quickly on clothing. Historically, any major contrast there?
It's maybe more subtle, but it's there and it's important. In Wonhai, sure, the laborers wore simple rural clothes, but the scholar families in Kaesong, their ceremonial hanbok could be much more elaborate, reflecting their status.
Oh, okay. And Jeolla?
In Jeolla, the really colorful hanbok was often specifically tied to performance, to pansori singers, to folk dancers. And that tradition continues, in a way. It's actively promoted now through tourism, especially in places like the Jeonju Hanok village.
Right, where you can rent hanbok and walk around.
Exactly. Performance and participation.
Okay. So let's try and synthesize these two great Korean roots then. Pull it all together.
Yeah, if we bring it all together, you see this really clear divergence, don't you? You have Hwanghae, the land of deep scholarly history, of agricultural duty, now framed very much by the needs and ideology of the northern state. And then you have Jeolla, the cradle of expressive arts, of popular rebellion, located firmly in the modern South, often questioning authority.
Right.
Both profoundly rooted in the soil, in farming. But the fruits they bear are just entirely different.
We've definitely established the difference between, say, the rapt elegance of bossum kimchi and the big democratic feast of Jeonju bibimbap. We've hopefully understood the power of hung, that joyful energy in Jeolla, and how even the regional versions of arang reflect completely different cultural approaches, one more meditative, the other more soulful.
So, connecting this to the bigger picture, maybe raises an important question for you, the listener, to carry forward. Think about this. Despite being separated by this political divide, this border, that put one region under a state focused on agricultural duty and centralized power, and the other under a system that, generally promotes democracy and expressive cultural freedom, despite all that, what does the persistence of shared traditions tell us? Things like Nongak, that deep-seated reverence for the land that seems present in both.
Mm.
The farming cycles they endure, right? The connection to the harvest feels sacred in both places, regardless of the government or ideology sitting on top of the soil. So what does that shared fundamental rhythm suggest about the underlying, maybe unbreakable unity of Korean cultural identity?
That shared root.
That shared root, that's the story you should keep exploring.